Hello and welcome to Heilman Haver, the Stage and Screen podcast, coming to you from Casa de Quinn at 1111 Studios in beautiful Port Orchard, Washington. I'm Matt Haver.
And I'm Greg Heilman. We're two local actors looking to hone our craft by exploring the best in local theater and on the big screen. Each week we bring you entertainment, news, and views, celebrate classic Hollywood, enjoy cocktails with a Tinseltown twist, interview talented local actors and directors, and chat with industry experts from LA to the UK.
Today is Friday, November 12th. Welcome to episode 51 and the second half of our interview with voice actor extraordinaire Rob Paulsen. Rob has over 2,000 half-hour programs and dozens of films, video games, and other animated media to his credit, plus a Daytime Emmy, a Peabody Award, and 3 Annie Awards. Stay tuned for Rob and his hilarious cast of characters.
And there is also quite the cast of characters playing on stage right now at our local Bremerton Community Theater, and any one of them might be a murderer. There are just 2 more weekends to catch Clue, the play based on the film, based on the board game. Check out our behind-the-scenes preview, available now on our YouTube channel, and find my review of the show on our Facebook page. Then hurry out and get your tickets at bctshows.com.
Well, we just set the clocks back. Turkey Day is weeks away, and that means Christmas will be here before we know it. We hope you'll make plans to join us Saturday, December 18th at the historic Roxy Theater for a classic Christmas. Our friend Jeremy Arnold will join us for an entertaining and educational roundtable discussion before It's a Wonderful Life hits the Roxy big screen at 7 p.m. There'll also be a matinee showing of A White Christmas and holiday bites and wine starting at 3 p.m. Plus, we'll enjoy a special Christmas message from Zuzu herself, Karolyn Grimes. Get more info and tickets at roxybremerton.org.
And while we're on the subject of Christmas, opening November 26th at Western Washington Center for the Arts in Port Orchard, it's the WWCA Holiday Variety Show, directed by our friend Rebecca Ewen. Come and celebrate the season with some of your favorite WWCA performers. The show will feature choral arrangements written by the late Bruce Ewen, beloved music director, dance numbers performed by Just for Kicks School of Dance, and much more. Get your tickets at wwca.us.
And set a reminder to join us next week, Friday, November 19th, when we'll welcome Stuart Lyons to the show. Stuart was our guest at the 2021 Seattle Film Summit and is a co-executive producer, line producer, unit production manager who's worked on projects with Netflix, Sony Pictures Television, Warner Brothers, Amazon Stars, Apple, HBO, FX, and AMC, including a little show you might have heard of called Breaking Bad.
And now we're pleased to be joined by a man who has given voice to some of the most popular and timeless animated characters and brought untold joy to millions over a career spanning 5 decades. Voice actor Rob Paulsen was born in Detroit, Michigan, and at an early age fell in love with the talents of comedians like Pat Paulsen, Foster Brooks, Red Skelton, Carol Burnett, Jonathan Winters, Peter Sellers, and the cast of Monty Python. His first role as an entertainer was as a singer, which trained his ear, eye, and voice to work together in a wide array of styles.
Rob hit L.A. in the 1970s intending to be a live-action actor, but quickly fell under the spell of the Groundlings, the legendary Los Angeles comedy improv troupe where he befriended and worked with Phil Hartman, Paul Rubens, Lynn Marie Stewart, John Paragon, Cassandra Peterson, and Lorraine Newman. His skills honed, he landed his first voice gig on G.I. Joe, which opened the door to Hanna-Barbera and veteran director Gordon Hunt, who cast Rob as one of Rob's favorite characters from boyhood, Haji, in a revival of the classic series Johnny Quest.
That early success came right at the advent of the cable revolution and the millennial baby boom, and sudden demand for family-oriented programming that would enchant young viewers as well as their parents. Disney, Warner Brothers, and Hanna-Barbera all started reviving old series and creating new ones, while networks like Nickelodeon and other syndication outlets began demanding more original daytime programming, and Rob and his colleagues were a part of it all.
Rob's best known for bringing life to beloved characters like Yakko on Animaniacs, Raphael on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Pinky and Dr. Scratch and Sniff on Pinky and the Brain, Carl Wheezer on The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, and dozens of others on, as we mentioned earlier, more than 2,000 half-hour programs and dozens of films, video games, and other animated media, earning him a Daytime Emmy, a Peabody Award, and 3 Annie Awards.
After fighting his successful battle with throat cancer in 2016, a story detailed in his 2019 memoir Voice Lessons, Rob is back and busier than ever, and still one of the hardest-working, most in-demand, and beloved voice actors in the industry. In 2020, he reprised his role as Yakko in a reboot of Animaniacs on Hulu, and has set new dates for his live show, Animaniacs in Concert, performed with live music in symphony halls and theaters around the country. He is an outspoken advocate for people battling cancer, and frequently takes time to bring joy and comfort to fans of all ages all over the world. Please enjoy the second half of our interview with Rob Paulsen.
Well, I'm curious now, you said that, the doctor said potentially this could change things for you. Do you have to approach your job differently now? You've talked about the importance of enunciation, gesticulation while you're acting, the location of where the voice lands in your throat, and all these types of things to think about. do you do different sets of warm-ups? What kind of practices do you do? Has it changed at all?
It
Have you gone
has.
from water to hot tea kind of a thing?
Yes, yes, all good. Water. I drink a lot of tea. I'm drinking water, and my salivary glands were pretty much fried.
Mm.
So I have no idea. I mean, I shouldn't say I had no idea. This is a pretty remarkable device that we all inhabit. And when you go through something that's life-changing and on a medical side of things, the stuff that we take for granted, like mouth watering, like that phrase, hey, that's really mouth watering. Not to me, not anymore. It's a fair trade, but you'd be surprised how integral saliva is to your enjoyment and your everyday health. But you know what? I'm working on a new medication now that's helped me with my saliva and all of that. So when I first got back to work, it took me about, I don't know, about 6 months to get back to work. And then, but about a year and a half to really become Rob 2.0 and be comfortable with the way things have changed. But I cannot be without water. I've always got water. There are a couple of notes on the top of my register that I don't handle quite so well anymore. So we just write things either in a different key or I will sing something. There are plenty of ways around it. My litmus test was if I was going to hear anything from fans or critics, because you guys mentioned it earlier, when the voices of iconic characters don't sound quite the same, people lose their minds. And I thought, well, you've been hired. Mr. Spielberg has brought you back, all of that. So far, so good. But well, let's see what the fans say. And I have not yet had anybody come up to me or seen an interview by a big animation fan journalist who said, yeah, gosh, Rob just isn't getting it. I haven't heard that at all.
I have not noticed a difference at all, and I can be kind of critical when it comes to things
Well, thank you, Greg.
like that. But yeah, it sounds like you didn't miss a beat. I mean, the entire cast.
Thank you. Well, that is true. I have to say that at least in terms of our chops, I think we're better than we were 20 odd years ago. We ought to be. But that was my biggest concern, was that if I couldn't cut it and it was just not even close to being up to snuff, that it would be an all or nothing deal. And while not one of my Animaniacs cast members said anything, but God bless you, we're here, whatever you need, you name it. I didn't want to be the big turd in the punch bowl that said, well, if Rob can't do it, I didn't want to be in that position. Also, from a purely mercenary standpoint, I wanted the gig, man. I wanted to do it again. And when you think about it, especially with Animaniacs and Pinky the Brain, you guys are professionals, and how many times do you get a show that I think arguably became iconic from the first go around, was beloved by more than just a bunch of little kids, and then 25 years later comes back on a brand new platform that wasn't even thought of when the original show was finished, with the King of Hollywood again, with the original voice cast again, and I think it's fair to say it's a hit again. That's in this era of reboot it, renew it, reuse it. Not everything comes out of the chute as being, oh my God, this is as good as we remember, or oh my God, nothing's changed. In fact, I'd argue that probably more than half the time it's like, why didn't they just leave well enough alone? Why did they do that? Or they hired somebody else to be the talking chicken. The guy who they did in the Talking Chicken, he's the reason I watched it, because the Talking Chicken had this guy's voice. Now they hired another actor. This isn't my dad's Talking Chicken cartoon, and none of that has happened with Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. In fact, the fan base is exponentially larger.
Well, I think it's all of us who grew up on Saturday morning cartoons, and then that went away for so long.
Yeah.
And then Animaniacs comes back in its first iteration, and it's kind of a throwback to these little short, a 30-minute show with 3 or 4 cartoons. So that drew us in, and then it comes back, and then we've got our kids.
Sure.
That we're introducing to it.
It's so much fun. And so in my context, my cancer experience didn't have a silver lining. My lining is platinum. It's almost as though the universe said, okay, look, maybe you're just not appreciative enough. So we're going to give you something about which to be even crazy appreciative. We're going to give you throat cancer. You're going to be fine, Then you're going to reboot this show that was life-changing for you. And then you do it again, and it's going to be bigger than the first time with an exponentially larger fan base. What do you say? I mean, come on. With all due respect to Lou Gehrig, I'm the luckiest man on the face of the earth, you know, and I utterly know it. To be in that glorious position is to be utterly privileged, to be a source of joy for virtually anyone you meet is this is the only time where Yakko gets speechless. You know what I mean?
Well, you've got fans, multi-generational fans out there all over the world. And I'm curious, your fans mean so much to you. That's obvious. When you perform, when you're on mic, I think back even as far back as Orson Welles, who I consider a voice actor,
Sure.
a radio pioneer. He was really famous for making people feel like he was talking directly to them, a very intimate style of delivery over the radio waves. Who do you have in mind when you perform? Do you have any specific fans that you've met in the past? Are you thinking about that child, that new fan sitting on their couch on Saturday morning?
Well, I certainly do my work for the audience, but I think because I believe that acting is acting, I'm about making sure that I'm in the moment with the other actors. I'm about creating the world that the audience is spending their precious time inhabiting, that they want to be inside Acme Lab with Pinky and the Brain. So that while we might break the fourth wall every now and then, I'm about working with Maurice. I'm about concentrating and listening to what he's saying and committing to my stuff. And if I do my job at the same level as the animators and the writers and the musicians, then we got something. But I'll tell you what I do is I get a chance to call kids all the time, and not just little kids. I can't even tell you how many times I'll get a phone call from someone who says, "Hey, I have this friend or a friend of a friend," or a hospital will call, or my publicist will get a phone call. A young man who's a 42-year-old, but he lives for Ninja Turtles and he's really struggling with, pancreatic cancer, and he would love a call from Raphael, and he's got his turtle shirt on when he does his chemo. I mean, come on. How on earth can I quantify what a privilege that is? And when that happens, just like when I'm working with Maurice or Billy West or Tress MacNeille, I am all in. When Raphael calls that gentleman, or Pinky calls that little girl, or Carl Wieser calls, a young mother with ovarian cancer who just can't get enough of Jimmy Neutron, I am all about them. Because as much as I'm maybe proud of my work, they don't want to talk to Rob. They want to talk to Pinky. They want to talk to Yakko. They want to talk to Donatello. And I take that very seriously. I don't look at it as like, well, just, a guy making silly noises. You tell those people that it's just a cartoon. You tell the parents of a young man or woman who may not make it out of that hospital room unless it's in a body bag, that when Winnie the Pooh calls, well, that's just that's kind of cute. No. This is a big, big deal. And I can tell you that I take it very seriously, so that if the person wants to talk to Rob, fine. But if they want to do the whole 15-minute conversation with Raphael and talk about pizza and every bad guy and Shredder, I'm in.
I've got a question for you about doing multiple voices. I was watching a Zoom read-through of a Family Guy episode, and Seth MacFarlane, who does hundreds of characters, I think, on that show, so he bounces from Peter to Brian to Stewie, and as he's doing that, he's just switching his voice as he goes, and I thought, man, this is incredible. But is that how do you record when you're making a show? If you're doing multiple characters, do you do it that way? Do you just switch back and forth, or do you record multiple tracks and they put it together in post?
It kind of depends. Billy West is also really good about that. When he's doing Zoidberg, Farnsworth, and Fry, I've seen him do a whole page of all three of those characters talking to one another, and you can almost hear him overlapping himself. It's crazy. But Seth is the same way. Seth MacFarlane is another guy I should have included in all that, but he's a one-stop shopping. He can do it all.
The singing in character is always something that really amazed me.
Oh, yeah. And he's got a wonderful voice.
Incredible.
If I had his dough, I'd record my own record of American standards too, and he just did a brilliant job of that. But usually I will go through and do my characters. Like most of the time I'm not acting opposite myself. when I am, like if Dr. Scratch and Sniff, I do the character called Dr. Scratch and Sniff as well is, who's the studio P psychiatrist, as he calls himself. And often Yakko and Scratchy will be talking to one another. And I always try to do, Yakko, yeah, Scratchy, what is it? Let me tell you here, I think we're going to need a bigger couch because I saw you filling out your question. Yeah, what do you mean you saw my questionnaire? I didn't ask you. You don't have a questionnaire. I do try to do it from top to bottom, going back and forth because I just love it. It's really great fun. It's a cool parlor trick, but it's not a big deal if you stop and start to say, hey, Yakko, would you please come in here? Yeah, what is it, Scratchy? I mean, that's not a problem. You know, we can do that, and or somebody else can, or I'll just go through it a couple of times. And if there's a pickup line that didn't quite nail it, we can nail it that way. But slipping between voices is just a gas of a thing to do. It's great fun.
As you said, voice acting is at its most basic all about creativity,
yes,
and flexibility. As the demand for more and more digital, especially animated content, this rises, what advice do you have for prospective voice talent? You talked about being flexible earlier in the show. What are some first steps that you would recommend for people interested in getting into the business?
I think, as I said earlier, it's called voice acting for a reason, small V, large A. And I don't think there's anyone who's done a lot of on-camera and voice work would argue with that. I would say, please act, please study acting. I don't mean you have to necessarily go to Juilliard, but get involved in local theater, get involved in your high school theater department. I understand that there are many high schools where the theater department has been, things like the creative arts are trimmed down. I totally get that. But usually then you can find a community theater and you may start out building sets, but become part of that group. Surround yourself with people of a like mind who are inspired to perform for its own sake. I promise you, no one, and you guys know a lot of people in this business. I don't know how long it took you guys to monetize your podcast, but I can guarantee you that nobody starts out doing one expecting to make a shit pile of money, if you know what I'm saying, right? And it's the same thing with actors. I didn't start to look at this as a way to actually pay for dog food until I was in my 20s. But I'd been performing and enjoying the whole process from the time I was, I don't know, really enjoying it and creating things with my friends when I was in 11, 12, 13, 14. And there's always something to do, especially now, my God. I've got an HD camera on this stupid thing. And you get together and shoot a couple of fun things with your friends, and you're all being creative, and maybe you're mimicking Pinky and the Brain. I don't know. But then you've got a platform called YouTube, which is free to load stuff on. Come on, man. You guys can practice like crazy before you ever even think about going to Hollywood. I would also encourage improvisational comedy or improvisational acting. It doesn't even have to be comedy. Being able to think on your feet, creating on a fly is a huge skill. That's why I called Phil Hartman terrifyingly inspirational, because he was a master at improv. But he wasn't a master at improv until he was well into his 30s, but he'd been doing it since he was in his teens. So to young actors out there, start now. You can get books, you can find stuff online. Improv is huge. Being able to sing in character, and you don't even have to sing well. I do a character on from a show called Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, and his name is Carl Weezer, and he's this little chubby guy with red hair and glasses and a lazy O, which was my choice. Thank you very much. And he sings because he loves to sing, but he can't sing worth a lick. But it doesn't matter, because in the context of that character, it's about commitment. It's about, I'm gonna sing, Jimmy's mom has got it going on. And there might only be 2 notes that I sang there that were appropriate for the real song, but I know it's Greg's freaking out. And that's worth it right there. That was awful singing. But when I sing it, baby, I'm committed. You're not going to have to worry if I'm going to do this half-assed, And so that's what it's about. But to get to the place where you're comfortable doing that takes some time. So everything that I mentioned, but it is about acting and surrounding yourself with people often if you can find them, people who are much better than you. The smartest thing I did, boys, was surround myself with people who were so much better than I that they inspired me to get better or get out.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the practicing and starting early. I remember when I used to read to my son before bed. We had these picture books and they all had different characters, and
Sure.
I tried to do a different voice for every character, which was fun. Like you said, it is really fun. I was never good at it. And then when I got my first role on stage, I just got into acting, 5 years ago or something like that. My first role was different voices, and having done that gave me a little bit of confidence that I could do that.
Sure. But ultimately, Greg, it's so much fun, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Oh, my God. And I look, you guys have been so kind to have me on your show now for, I don't know, 45 minutes, whatever. But this effusiveness or this excitement is utterly authentic that you see from this gray-haired old 65-year-old man. I love this gig. It's a total Jones. I don't care if I had 10 interviews today and you guys were the 11th, I'd still be doing this. You're talking to me, you're making a fuss over me for doing something that I would do for free. And I just, and I know that you like some of the work I've worked on, and it's just the coolest thing in the world. So I get what you're talking about, Greg. It's just a blast to do it. I'm not getting paid for this. I love talking about it.
Well, that brings us to another fun question we've got for you, and this is about other characters. What are some of your other characters that you really enjoy by other actors? Who really cracks you up?
Billy West kills me as Zoidberg and Farnsworth. Just kills me. Maurice LaMarche is like the ultimate super duper multiple character guy for Futurama. He plays Morbo the newscaster. He plays Kif Kroker. He plays Calculon, and they're all completely different. Maurice doing the brain. I mean, you mentioned Orson Welles. If you hear Maurice LaMarche do his impression of Orson Welles, the frozen peas commercial, it is on the nose.
Indeed.
I have heard it at least a couple hundred times, seriously, and it never gets old. And what's really cool is when Maurice does Orson Welles, his I can't do it, but his one eyebrow goes like this, like the brain. He looks like the freaking brain. And oh my God, it's just spectacular. John Dimaggio as Bender just lights me up and makes me sideways. Seth MacFarlane, I'm Family Guy. That guy is just a tour de force. I've met Seth a few times, never had the pleasure of working with him very much. I think I worked with him on Johnny Bravo years ago at Hanna-Barbera, but no, man, Seth he's a rock star.
You ever work with Mike Judge at all?
I worked with Mike Judge I think I did a pilot with him. And I don't know Mike, but I do know Pam Adlon very well, who is Bobby Hill on King of the Hill. And I've always loved what Pammy does, because obviously she's a female, but she's doing a killer job on that little boy. So those kids all just really light me up. Tress MacNeille is a crazy cat lady on The Simpsons, puts me out of my mind. I have no idea what she's saying, and it doesn't matter. She's just, and I've seen her do it. It's even more glorious to sit next to these people and watch them essay those roles. They just crazy. Kevin Michael Richardson as Cleveland Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Just on and on and on. And like I said, Frank Welker and Peter Cullen as Megatron and Optimus, respectively. Let me tell you something, you guys. You want to see a bunch of grown men get a little tearful? Wait till you hear Peter Cullen in person say, "Autobots roll out." They lose their minds. It's the coolest thing in the world. And then Frank starts ripping us, Megatron. Oh God. So yeah, it's just all so exciting, and they're my friends, and they utterly inspire me. I get to see them all the time. It's like I said, with all due respect to Lou Gehrig,
Well, speaking of inspiring, I want to, before we let you go, I do want to give you a chance to talk about some of the charities that you've worked with around cancer research and some of the kids' charities. Did the charities come about as a result of throat cancer?
Right. No, thank you for asking. No, I had been doing a lot of charitable stuff long before I had throat cancer because I can't not do it. And I don't mean because that saying that to whom much is given, much is expected. I believe that is true. But I had so many glorious opportunities through different organizations, one called Famous Phone Friends, St. Jude, Make-A-Wish, over and over again, who say, we get, as I described earlier, we have a young man or young woman who wants to talk to fill in the blank. And boy, when you get to do it in person, and I've been in many, many hospital rooms, and when you get to do it in person at the request of the parents, that's when you really get to see what real courage is about, what incredible strength. And often it's the parents who are getting the living daylights beat out of them because they can't do any more than they're doing. And if for whatever reason, I and Pinky and Yakko and Carl and Donnie and Ruff or whomever, if we are the reasons that their little boy or girl smiles or feels a little bit better under impossibly diabolical circumstances, that's what I mean when I say I can't not do it. I'm a parent, and thank God my son never had to go through anything like that, and nor did my wife and me. But it is, at this very moment, someone is getting a phone call about their 4-year-old with a brain tumor. I mean, how does that work? And if I am the lucky one who gets a phone call to say, would you give this young woman a call, the young lady a call? Of course I will. And we all do it. So that was before cancer, but after cancer, as a result of it, I now am the spokesperson for the Head and Neck Cancer Alliance. And I've been doing it now for 2 years. And folks, if they have any concerns, questions about head and neck cancers, my particular cancer was caused by the human papilloma virus. Same with Michael Douglas. Same with Jim Kelly, the auspicious former quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, who talk about a hero. Sadly, Eddie Van Halen, Roger Ebert, but I'm one of the lucky ones. And so if for folks who have any concerns or questions, please go to headandneck.org and you will see my story there and the stories of many other people. There will be over 600,000 people worldwide diagnosed with head and neck cancers this year. And next year, I should say. My cancer was called stage 3 metastatic squamous cell carcinoma. And the primary tumor was in my throat at the base of my tongue. But just like colonoscopies or colons, we're talking about both sides of our bodies.
Right.
But just like colon cancer, if it's caught early enough, as in my case, even though it was stage 3, that was as a result of the tumor was here, but it had moved to a lymph node in my neck, which is how I discovered it, because while shaving, I thought, God, what's that knot doing there? So even though it was staged at 3, it was treatable. Treatment, I'm not going to lie to you, the treatment's pretty onerous, but it works like a charm. And who better to tell you that than Yakko Warner, So the charitable stuff, I have been the incredible beneficiary of all sorts of charity. Not necessarily, people writing me a check, but just human kindness overflowing over and over and over and over again. So if it's all about paying it forward, then I am one who needs to do a lot of paying it forward, because I've had a lot of people give me a ton of love.
Well, and you've got a ton of really positive motivational content out there. Like you said, YouTube, just jump on there, type in Rob Paulsen, Paulsen. You've got a TED Talk out there. You've got some wonderful interviews telling your story. And I've really enjoyed preparing for this interview because we got to do all that fun research. What's the best way for folks to keep up with you? I think you're on Instagram, Twitter.
I'm on Twitter. I am at Yakko Pinky, YAKKLPINKY. Instagram, I'm Rob_Paulsen, Paulsen. Thank you, Matt. I'm on TikTok, Rob Paulsen 311. That somebody else was called Rob Paulsen, so I had to use my birthday, Rob Paulsen 311. By the way, did you guys know how popular Carl Wheezer is? Oh my God, this character. I posted something as Carl Wheezer yesterday, day before yesterday. And as of right now, it's got like 300,000 views. It was Carl Wheezer talking to the brain about finding a croissant that would make him, he loves eating croissants. And so Maurice did the brain while I did Kyle Weezer. But I had no idea. So that's just another one of these, look at how many kids are on TikTok being creative at levels that I could not even fathom for free.
Yeah, it's a great equalizer now. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it is. So, but those are the best ways. And on Rob Paulsen, voice actor on Facebook. So I'm everywhere. I'm ubiquitous, baby.
Add influencer to the list.
Oh, thank you, pal. I appreciate that. I hope that I am, and I hope it's all for positive stuff because I don't have my own makeup line. You can tell, obviously. But no, I'm a very, very, very fortunate fellow, and for many reasons, not the least of which is that you sweet guys took an hour with me tonight. That's very cool.
Oh, it was our pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for bringing all of your friends along with you, that cast of characters from decades now in the voice business, and along with all the inspirational stories and tales from your career, Rob. It's really been a pleasure.
My great pleasure, man, and thank you, Greg. It was just a total privilege, and as I always say, laughter is the best medicine. And the cool thing is, you can't OD, and the refills are free, and I'm sticking to it.
It's more powerful than screams.
There you go.
Rob, thanks again.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
Well, another big thank you to our guest, Rob Paulsen. You can connect with Rob on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, linked in the show notes, and request his book, Voice Lessons, How a Couple of Ninja Turtles, Pinky, and an Animaniac Saved My Life, from your local bookseller. Join us next week, Friday, November 19th, when we'll welcome Stuart Lyons to the show. Stuart was our guest at the 2021 Seattle Film Summit and is a co-executive producer, line producer, unit production manager who's worked on projects with Netflix, Sony Pictures Television, Warner Brothers, Amazon Stars, Apple, HBO, FX, and AMC, including a little show you might have heard of called Breaking Bad.
And if you enjoy this show, please make sure to follow us and share the podcast with a friend. Tell them to find us at heilmanandhaver.com and tune in on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Audible, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. You can keep up with all of our latest on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Check out special segments like In the Mix and Get to Know a Theater on YouTube. As always, thank you for supporting local theater and for joining us on Heilman and Haver.